Politics and entertainment. If those two words go together, it should be to say that you are trying to bring entertainment to politics. But you should never try to bring politics to entertainment. The WNBA is about to find that out the hard way. As you have probably heard by now, the WNBA is facing an identity crisis. Do they define what the W in their name stands for? Or do they send the signal that they are fine with biological men competing in their league? Here's the short version of how we got here. Sophie Cunningham, role player for the Indiana Fever, was quoted in an ESPN article saying that biological men should not compete in women's sports. The league could have just ignored that, but instead they sent a signal that they believe Cunningham is a bigot. One opposing coach wore a trans inclusivity shirt while playing against Cunningham. One team unveiled a non-binary mascot while playing against her, and the league forced fans to cover shirts that said XXXY on them. Enes Kanter, former NBA player, saw all this happening and decided that he would push the issue. If the WNBA is so pro-trans, then under their rules he should be eligible to play if he claims that he is a woman. So he declared for the draft. The whole time it was understood that he would walk away if the league would just define what a woman is. This forced the league to hold a meeting with executives, and in that meeting they never agreed how to define what a woman is. Thereby, they were unable to define who is allowed to play in their league. And that brings us to last night. Kanter showed up to a WNBA game wearing a shirt that said woman, noun, adult human female. The Chicago Sky players saw him and started yelling at him, then Kanter was removed from the game. But as I planned this video just hours after Kanter was escorted out last night, the league finally announced that Enes Kanter is ineligible to play in the WNBA. Yet they still refuse to define what a woman is. They did not ban him because the rules don't allow biological men to play. They banned him because they thought he wasn't being genuine in his trans identity. Now, this whole saga has been going on for like a month now, and I never talked about it until now because I felt like I had nothing to add that you haven't already seen on X. A league that cannot define who is allowed to play is a league that is destined to fail. That much is obvious, and that is not an interesting enough take for me to repeat as I try to build my channel. So my point is broader and applies to all sports leagues. When you make politics your brand instead of entertainment, you are doomed to the basement of the sports world. And right now, the WNBA is making politics their brand. We do not have to look very far back in history to see what happens when a sports league focuses so heavily on political messaging. In 2020, the NBA shut down because of COVID. In late summer, they held the NBA playoffs in a bubble in Orlando. This was during the summer of George Floyd, so they allowed their players to wear social justice slogans on the backs of their jerseys. These included things like Black Lives Matter, anti-racist, and group economics. And what happened to the ratings? Despite the world being starved for sports, there was a 40% decline in the Nielsen television ratings. And it's not because the matchup was bad. The finals consisted of LeBron James facing off against his former team, the Miami Heat, and that still could not come close to the ratings that the NBA had become accustomed to. Remember the phrase, go woke, go broke? That saying did not start in 2020, but it was everywhere in 2020 to describe the backlash against the NBA's push into politics. The NBA brought politics into entertainment, and the league was hurt financially because of it. The NBA went woke, but because the NBA is so well established, they were able to weather the storm. They immediately got rid of the slogans on the jerseys, but it took years for the NBA to get back to its pre-COVID popularity. In 2019, the finals averaged about 15 million viewers per game, and they never got close to that number until this year when the Knicks beat the Spurs in 5. They brought politics in for just one summer, and it took one of their marquee teams breaking a 50-year championship drought to get back to the ratings that they had before politics took over the sport. But what about the WNBA? Can the WNBA weather the same storm? Your instinct might be to say no, but let's be clear about something. The WNBA will not fold. The NBA subsidizes it. Well, the unspoken truth is, if that it were not for the NBA's money, the WNBA would have been gone years ago. So what will happen is something quieter. The WNBA recently signed a new media rights deal on the back of Caitlin Clark bringing in new eyes to the league. But will those people keep watching? The numbers say that people care about Indiana Fever games and not much else. And as the years go on and Caitlin Clark becomes less of an anomaly, will people still tune in? I have my doubts. When a new fan turns on a game and sees a non binary mascot, a coach in a trans acceptance shirt, and security forcing fans to cover up XXXY shirts, is that fan being entertained? Or are they feeling lectured to? For the average viewer, they would feel lectured to, and then they would turn the game off. For now, the WNBA is still the most popular women's professional sports league in America. But if they keep going down this path, if they keep bringing politics to entertainment, that lead will dwindle. Volleyball ratings have been skyrocketing over the past few years. The professional softball league is finally finding solid footing. The market for women's sports is growing. But the WNBA has decided to chase politics over entertainment. If they keep that choice, they will squander their moment. It will survive because of the NBA subsidy, but it will be in danger of becoming the basement dweller of even the women's sports leagues. That is what happens when you bring politics to entertainment. Subscribe and like the video for more from me. I'm trying to build a brand based on honest, reasonable takes, not the performative outrage you see from so many online these days. If that resonates with you, subscribe and head to my Substack to get new releases emailed directly to you. With that, I'll see you next time. Thank you.